So I thought I'd jump on after my first sparring session since January the 4th, I do believe. I'm autistic, I'm good with numbers, so I should be able to recollect that. And I tell you what, a lot has changed in that time. So obviously you can probably tell, same scenery. Well, it looks like the same scenery because it's it's the same couch and it's a white wall, but it's a different white wall, which I may show you one day as well. Not right now, it's not very well presented. No, this is not my cheap version of an OnlyFans casting couch, although if you want that, I know someone quite dearly for at least a little short time that might be able to give you that. You might be able to see the message at the very end, the details that. I'm not going to do that, get done for defamation, can't be dealing with that, cannot be dealing with that. So obviously, January, ended my relationship with my better half at the time. Nothing terrible, like she did absolutely nothing wrong. Quite frankly, she did everything right. It was just unfortunately feelings and emotions had changed my end, and obviously in truth, you know, when you're with someone you're not fully invested in them, it's not fair to keep things going. It's painful on their behalf, and quite frankly, it's not fair at all. And unfortunately, I didn't have to let her go. That sounds like I'm some sort of like top tier football team. Unfortunately, I had to end things, otherwise it was just not fair on her at all, you know. And I wish her all the best. She's a phenomenal human being. We've kept things amicable because quite frankly, she's, you know, a very incredible person and a lot better person than I am. So I can't say anything bad on that one at all. She has a wonderful family. She's raised perfectly. She's a great example, testament and credit to her family and the way they've raised her. Cannot say anything wrong about the girl. A lot of you probably thinking, well, why have you broken up with her then? It was just those two things. We grew apart as we ventured into our own worlds. You know, we both wanted different things in life. I kind of feel like I want to venture out and explore things, not like that, not sexual, in the sense that I want to see the world a little bit more, and I feel like maybe she perhaps wants to settle down, but there you go. So for myself, since then, I had my first sparring session of the year, January, and got injured. Almost a bit like karma, really, isn't it? Broke someone's arm, and then my shoulder almost broke. It wasn't really a breaking. I had a really bad rotator cuff injury through sparring. My arm was basically punched down, and then from there it was a real big strain. I couldn't lift my shoulder up. It was exceedingly painful. I drove myself home like the strongman guy, or the guy with the strong hand out of Scary Movie 2. God knows how I did it. God knows whether or not it's legal or not. Went to A&E, got it checked out. Turns out not breakage, but obviously rotator cuff injury. So me being me, I'm going to be very upfront with yourselves. I am an addict when it comes to certain things. So when I realised then, the year where I really wanted to be as active as possible, the year where I wanted to have 5-6 fights in 1 year, a couple weeks after the other, maybe pursue the amateurs, I then went completely the opposite way. Single for the first time in my whole of my 20s, because I was in a relationship for when I was 20 up till 28 years of age. So that's 8 solid years of my 20s where I was in a relationship committed. So in my head, for some whatever reason, I had this idea that, oh, I'm going to go pursue relationships with multiple people. Silly idea. And again, the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to talk in depth about why I want to go in depth. Now, the reason why I'm taking this video is because I want to talk specifically about when you lose your passion, you lose your identity. Now, for me, I had an injury, therefore I, in my head, felt, well, I can't train, I can't fight, what's the point? Might as well pursue other things in the meantime. And that's the short-term satiation, satisfaction, which is obviously, you know, the sad things in life, which is drink, sex, not drugs. Not a druggie, fortunately, but if I was, it would go right under my nose, or your noses. No, in all seriousness, I don't do drugs. But I lost my identity along the way because I wasn't training in boxing, I wasn't keeping myself accountable. And the one thing I love the most about boxing is the thrill. When you're sparring time, especially when they're dangerous, you don't want to go out and go partying. You don't want to go out and have a cigarette or a vape or whatever sort of thing, all the things I fell into, because you're constantly thinking about the disaster that's going to hit after that night out, when you go into sparring and all of a sudden your opponent's 10 times, 20 times fitter than you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that is quite a scary position to be in, when you're out of breath and you can't bring your arms up and you're taking several punches, several fists to the face. No homo. So for me, that was one of my biggest things, where I had lost my identity. I wasn't training specifically in boxing so much, and I hadn't hit pads in God knows how many months leading up to today. It really threw me, and I attached myself to really, it sounds horrible, and I don't mean any disrespect to the people I pursued, but somewhat meaningless relationships where in my head I knew from the very start it wasn't going to go anywhere. And then that made me more vulnerable, because then I was pursuing things that I felt like were my identity going forward. I had a 4-week situationship, of which I won't go into detail about because it's not really fair to the other person to talk too much about. But what I will say is I grew so attached to the idea of being with them that when things didn't work out, it was a humongous catastrophe. And then I suddenly felt alone. I suddenly was wondering in my head, what's the point in life and all that sort of stupid shit. Purely because, going back to my point, I lost my identity, completely lost myself, because I wasn't doing the one thing, if I'm going to be honest, where I feel at the most safest. It's ironic, boxing is a very dangerous sport. It's the most dangerous sport I've ever taken part in. However, it's the only sport in my head where I feel the most safest, where I don't feel susceptible to suicidal thoughts. I don't feel susceptible to self-harm. All of the things I've had in the past, of which has led to me to this conversation now. Jumped into the sparring today, and it's almost, and don't get me wrong, probably got my ass beat. I'm not going to lie to you, no homo. No sexual innuendo intended. But, you know, it was a tough spar. But do you know what? I come out of that and I was like, oh my God, I feel alive again. You know, I feel like my identity is now coming back to me again. And although other things have gone great, I've moved into my own place, my business is continuing to grow, the passion was fizzing out a little bit because my brain wasn't being stimulated. And that's probably down to being autistic and needing to have some new challenge at all times and new risks to take. And possibly, obviously, I'm undiagnosed ADHD. Well, I can't say I might got ADHD because it's undiagnosed, isn't it? But I consider myself to potentially have that, just considering my personality traits and so forth, and characteristics. But that's another thing that I think, you know, that is starting to regain within myself. I've potentially got a fight in 4 to 5 weeks, so therefore I'm getting myself physically fit for that. I've got no time for pursuing these pointless dating sites that are run by people that also run, you know, casino betting apps as well to make things more addictive. So you're sat there swiping for hours. And I can tell you one thing for sure, the craze over social media, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all these YouTube shorts, all that sort of jazz, all these dating apps, takes up hours of your day without you even realising. There's been times I've come home here, I'm on my own, so I'm not having conversations with everyone every 5 minutes. I probably have more conversations with myself than anyone else. So I'm sat there on the apps, swiping, and I feel less and less satiated, less and less satisfied every single time I go on those things. And again, I feel more and more lost. I get more and more behind in my work, and I don't do the things that I want to do because I've got no time at that point, and therefore I'm time limited. I know I've absolutely waffled on here. It's like a static walk and waffle today, or casting couch walking waffle version without obviously, not virgin version, without obviously, you know, the interesting stuff per se. If you know, you know. If you don't know, keep it that way. But yeah, that's what I wanted to sort of just jump on here, obviously, to update yourselves. I'm on my own, in a good way. No box room, shout out Lake Palmer. Those who know, know. Obviously, we've got to keep getting Farouk this. Shout out Lou Farouk. But yeah, I've found my identity again. I've got myself back on track, and I aim to keep it that way. And obviously, I aim for the next video to look a little bit more presentable, not just lying here on the sofa in a sort of suggestive position. I'm not in a suggestive position, but you get what I mean. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you come all this way to the end of the video, God bless you, because you're probably the only fucking person who has. The secret note today, the secret message is beware, beware of the nest in Thailand. All the best. God bless. Peace.